we have to begin with how essential it is that the presence of the therapist is present.
Mm.
And so much of us, and it's easy, like obviously my patient told me the other day, where did you go? I was not there. And she said, you need to come back. And then she told me yesterday too, she said, and I expect you to be my analyst all the way to the end, no matter when I terminate.
Okay.
And I said, yes, because that's what I do here, but it's also when I'm most present to her, right? And so she reminded me of my own essentialness, if you will, and the idea of essentialized. So my favorite, which isn't in the core competency book, is the essentialness of us showing up,
Mm.
and the terror of that. Like
Mm.
when I, in my certificate program, and when I encourage people to think that their subjectivity is key to the therapy, it is such a major shift that it has a terror to it, if you will, sometimes. Like, I don't know if I can bring myself in it. Because we're good at hiding. And I don't even mean that in a negative way. We we were formed in a way to protect
Mm.
rather than to be present. And so that's my favorite. What I would say, um, which actually, in a way, I have talked about it, but I would talk about it even more strongly, which is the therapeutic stance attitude, which is this radical openness to oneself. So, again, the chapter 4 in the new book speaks about the essential I, and we are taught, right, in our programs to be radically open to the other. Well, I say that's pretty hard to do, and it's not for real.
Mm.
Like, all of us are judgmental. And so every patient, the life they have, I've already made a judgment about it.
Yes.
So what am I going to do about my judgment, right? And usually my defensive structure is I can't be open to my own structures, my own traditions, my own culture, my own way of being in the world is my way of being in the world. And to rip that open by somebody who's different than me, but that it is the stranger that is within that we have to play with. And it doesn't mean um, that we're all the idea of being well analyzed is that's a work of a lifetime. But always am I at my best open to being infected and to being and am I open to then play with it when I'm not? That's what I mean by radical openness to oneself. Can I play with all of these multiple affective states that
Mm.
emerge?
Mm.
I would also say so that's a big deal. I also have been pleased to introduce the idea of psychoanalytic therapeutic intent because every model except psychoanalysis knows what they're doing.
Yes.
And
That's
so
awesome.
I would say we better know what we're doing. What
Yeah.
is the purpose of us sitting for years together? And and so it's fun to see uh, some of the things that came up that our work should produce such and such.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that so I was glad to introduce, like really think about it, like I did with my students. What is your North Star? Why are you doing this? Because we get lost all the time in the work. And my patient reminded me the other day to think, why are you doing this, Roy? What is your therapeutic intent sitting here being social with me,
Mm.
ha-haing me, instead of thinking me and being with me and working with me? And so our one of the goals is to help my patient become radically open to themselves, to be able to play with all of their multiple affective states, to be in deeper relationships, to be more imaginative, to love. Um, so that I think that's a really important one.
Mm.
Um, the other thing, what's really powerful to me, I guess I like them all, but I want to say I think the courageous speech is really important to me
Yeah.
because I see with my supervisees the how we stumble around bringing honestly something that is occurring in the treatment, which also applies to how important we are radically open to how we're getting caught up in the story and how we might be colluding in the story and how we're going to work that. And I'm not successful with all of my patients. And I that really makes me stop and go, what have I done? What have I haven't done? What was in the way? Because yesterday I was supervising someone and they were saying with the patient, um, like the treatment failed because of the patient. And I said, I don't think that way. When
Mm.
when a therapy fails or we're stuck, I go, yeah, this patient's narcissism or their borderlineness or their whatever. But what about mine?
Yep.
Um, and how am I got caught up in something I couldn't find my way out of?
Mm.
And in fact, this patient I write about in the core competency text in the courageous speech chapter, I believe, and she diagnosed herself, and I was not in disagreement, and she was a classic borderline out of the DSM.
Mm.
But I was more borderline than her many
Mm.
times in that work. I was the one splitting. I couldn't bear her. I couldn't bear the emotions that were going on. And so this idea of repetition, working through conflict, having the courage to speak to it, considering I think Jessica Benjamin has given us so much around the concept of the third.
Mm.
Uh,
Yes.
so and I think the last thing I would say, the deep listening affective attunement is a listening to that which is not being spoken, to the viscera. And I write in my new book, there's certain people who hit us, right? And we go, yes. And when I was reading um, Erwin Singer one time, and he said, you've got to pay attention to your viscera. I go, ooh, viscera. Yeah, that's my word. And it's never left me. So that affective attunement is trying to get beyond the noise of our words, my own and my patient's words, to go, what is the motivation and the affective states that are bringing these words to the fore?